I opened the door, and there was this guy sitting like this, looking at me, and the entire room was covered in blood.
Betsy Haskell is a legendary lady who set up the very first private hotel in the Georgian capital, Tbilisi.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Today, Georgia and Tbilisi is such a popular tourism destination that you can find hotels practically in every corner. But in the early 1990s, when Betsy first came to war-torn Georgia, there was simply no safe places to stay. We dive into the scenes straight from the 1990s gangster films.
Betsy, thank you so much. It's such an honor. You're such a legend. You're such a legend. And I'm really, truly honored that you have agreed to be a guest in my podcast.
Wow, thank you. I'm happy to be.
We're sitting in your garden. Lovely day, sunny. The sun is shining. But when was the first time that the whole idea of Georgia was introduced to you? Because you're American, you know, for a lot of Americans, when they hear Georgia, first and foremost, they think about the state of Georgia, Atlanta.
Right. I was running an international political exchange program.
For students or
for
leaders?
Young political leaders.
Right.
To give legislators mostly, or people at that level, to give them a sense of the world, basically.
Was it the State Department funded?
But
No,
the State Department funded it. USIA at the time. And so we had these groups coming, and we were sending groups of Americans also. And so Georgia I knew, and this man walked in my office and said, we want to be our own direct
Right.
not have to go through Russia.
have a direct access.
Yes. He went back, and then he said that Gangsta wanted to meet me. He had been working with Gangsta.
This is the first president of independent Georgia.
Yes. And would I come? And they would pay my way and put me up, but Gangsta was desperate for money. There was no money in the cash box. And so, of course, I said, sure. I mean, why not? A great adventure, a new country,
Yeah.
And I came. That's how it all started.
What was your, if you can remember, what was your kind of first feeling when you arrived in this country? What was it like for you?
I stayed in the old, now Marriott hotel, and I was the only guest in the hotel, and it was furnished complete with faux French Empire furniture. And
Was there food?
the food wasn't so great.
And
The food was never great at that time. We never had anything like the food we have now.
really?
Nothing.
So the famous Georgian food, because people just didn't have
Money.
They didn't have money.
Nobody had money, including the government.
What was the exchange then if you wanted to buy something?
Well, there was nothing to buy,
Right.
really.
It was so desperately poor.
Yeah, it really was just desperately poor.
But were you impressed, you know, how nowadays people, when they first arrive in Georgia, they arrive in Tbilisi, they're impressed by the architecture.
Yes.
That
It
was
was
impressive.
magical.
It was magical.
Yeah.
You could really, and at the time, did you think that you will be connected with this country for the rest of your life?
No, not in a million years.
No.
But I loved it immediately. And at the time, the war was about to break out here.
The Civil War.
The
first-
Civil War. So there were no cars on the street. Well, nobody could drive a car because they couldn't get gas. But cars were coming down, and every car that came down Rustaveli Avenue was stopped and checked. And then I had
Bribe
my
taken.
appointment with Gangsta, and he sent an envoy, an escort.
By foot, because there were no cars, they just came to meet you.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
yeah,
we had just,
yeah.
walk across the street. And we walked in, It's the only time I've really almost ever been in the parliament since then. And you know, it's all open in the center, and everything is built around it. It was completely filled with weapons. And these rolling machine, I don't know what they're called. They have wheels, and it's something that gets shot out of.
Wow. Must have been scary.
Well, you could hardly move for these things. And then this kid came up to me in a uniform. I thought he was about 15 or 16, and he stuck a rifle in my stomach. So I looked at the escort to say, you know, okay, now BNS, escort me around this kid. And he didn't know what to do either. So I just had to push the gun away and keep walking into Gamsakordia's office.
How did that meeting go?
Not very well. He just wanted money, and he wanted to know where I could get it for him. And
what happened after that meeting? He just wanted money, and
well, he didn't like me, and he told me he didn't like me, and then I left. And
what do you mean?
He said, go see Sigua, the prime minister under him.
He told you he didn't like you?
Yeah, because I wasn't coming up with the answers he wanted to say, like I had a bank account with 20 million in it that I would give him or something. We really did not hit it off, he and I.
When did you return then to the country? So you've had
several days. I mean, I was there for about a week. So I realized the way to do it was to find people who were counterparts to ministers here. So there were so many ministers, like there were 22 ministries. Nobody worked. There was one businessman in town. So I went to the American Association of Retired Businessmen, AARP, and I said, I need matches for a minister of agriculture, a minister of energy, a minister of whatever. And I want to find someone in your files or in your organization that would like to go to Georgia and work with that ministry. And they all went crazy and loved the idea. So I came up with 22 matching
professionals.
The guys who were retired weren't old by any means, you know, but
they had their skills and their experience, and they were eager to offer it. Yeah.
Yes. That was fantastic.
So how long after this whole kind of introduction of professionals to the ministries you returned to Georgia and you started working here?
Well, almost immediately.
Right. And the war was happening at the time?
No, it was over.
Oh, the war was over.
And Gamsakordia had left. And there was a junta that ran the country, and it was Kavani, the military guy, Jaba Yosalayani, who was sort of an all-around poet and thief, and Sigua, Tengi Sigua, the guy who had been
the prime minister,
vice president, and that was the group. Shevardnadze joined later, but initially that was the group. And then I received a letter from a man who was the fourth richest man in America, one of 4 billionaires. And he was in Metromedia, was the name of the company that he owned. And they had bought the TV tower.
Ah, so it was owned by an American businessman.
Yes.
Right, the TV tower in Tbilisi.
Yes. And the letter said, I will give you $150,000 a year to go to Georgia and be an American.
What's that mean? be an American. Speak American.
Speak American, walk around the streets looking like an American. I don't know what it was, but
So you were paid $150,000 a year just
Yes.
to be an American
yes,
in Tbilisi.
yes.
Okay. To represent the country.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah.
The U.S. Embassy opened while I was being an
Being
American. And hilarious.
Yes.
And when Concordia left Georgia originally, after I had met him and left, he went out to West Georgia, and he was walking along, just walking in the woods, and there was a great movie about this, actually, made by a Georgian. And nobody knew if he was going to come back. And he started making noises about retaking the presidency.
Who was running the country then?
The junta was running the country. These four guys, or five with Shevardnadze.
So he was making the noises, Gamsakhudze,
And
about
the
wanting to come
people
back.
who owned the Meteki Palace, as it was called then, the Sheraton, were terrified he was going to come back. So they hired one of these two groups, the Jabba Yassaliani Mafia or the Kavani Mafia. I can't remember which one they owned. I mean, they hired to protect them if Concordia came back. And meanwhile, the U.S. Embassy was opening, and the new people coming were staying in the Meteki.
So it was because it was kind of criminal world was running the country.
Yes.
And each property, and in this case it was a big hotel, probably the only functioning hotel.
It was the only functioning hotel.
It was the only functioning hotel. It had its, in Russian they say krysha, or the roof, the protector.
Yeah, the roof.
Right? So the
They had
roof,
that.
yeah.
But they weren't just, I mean, they were actively walking around that hotel with guns.
That must have been so
And-
scary.
The embassy got quite nervous about their people sitting in the lobby. Not that they would be shot directly, but perhaps there would be a ricochet. So they said to me, I by that time met the people at the embassy, and the administrator said to me, can you find us another hotel? Because I can't keep our people here. And so I started looking for hotels. And at that time, there weren't any hotels except the Meteki Palace in Tbilisi. And all the houses that we could have adapted to had a bathroom on the first floor next to the kitchen. That was how it worked. There was one bathroom in the house, and it was attached to the kitchen, so all the water worked. And I finally found what became Betsy's Hotel, because it was a house that had been built, just built recently, very recently, for a family, the parents and two children's families. And so it had a bathroom on each floor. And
So
so,
that
I
was-
said, this is what I found. Is this okay? I mean, there's nothing else like it in Tbilisi. And the embassy said, okay. So that's how Betsy's came to pass.
How was it as an American woman to run a business in Tbilisi at the time?
I surrounded myself with Georgians. First of all, there were no other Americans to hire. It turned out that there were two guys at the Sheraton who had been in charge of the books,
Right, the accounting and
Accounting.
the admin.
admin. And they were frightened and they left. And they were looking for a job. And I could hire them because I had no idea how to run a hotel, how to set it up. I mean, how do you keep the books, et cetera, et cetera. So that was my lucky break, finding those two guys
And it was a success immediately.
immediately.
Because there was so much demand for
Yeah.
It's not like now. Now every other building in Vera, where your hotel was
Yeah.
originally
Was.
is
a hotel.
Is a hotel.
I know.
Yes.
And it was really fun.
But did you come across this? You know, Georgia is quite a kind of macho society, patriarchal society, and especially at the time, were there any kind of limitations? Because you were a woman. Did you presumably you had to deal with a lot of men?
Yeah, of course.
Yes. How was that experience? Or because you were American, it was easier, would you say?
It was easier. And they were, one time, I came to work in the morning, and the cops were there, and they said, "We arrested your night watchman last night at 3 a.m. because he was standing on the street trying to sell the wine you had, 3 cases." And the women who worked there were enraged. They thought it was a setup by the cops. Mm-hmm. But we went to the police station, and here these poor, always had these guys a soft spot. They had, you know, a pad and a pencil to write down all the information that I could give them. And meanwhile, this woman whom I'd taken with me because she spoke English and she worked for me, you know, she was screaming around the whole police station. She went to see this guy who was in jail, and he said, "Yes, I did.
I was trying to sell the wine."
I was trying to sell the wine." And the next day, the police came back with all the wine.
They returned it.
Yeah. I mean, I never personally came across any really bad stuff.
Incidents with
Incidents.
With the authorities, with
No.
the law enforcement, with the police, or
With the police or anything. Actually, backing up a bit, all the gas and electricity was very, you know, not reliable.
non-existent.
And one time, while before that happened, but we had opened Betsy's, the people at the Sheraton called and said, "Would you like to come up and have a hot shower and relax and blah, blah, blah." And so I said yes, and I took some of the other staff, and we had this nice, hot, comfortable, lit room, you know, and I thought, oh, I want a massage. That would top off the day. So I went downstairs. I knew where the massage room was in the basement near the pool. And I opened the door, and there was this guy sitting like this, looking at me, and the entire room was covered in blood.
What?
Ceiling, walls, floors. So whenever Jamba's guys caught one of Kavani's guys coming into the hotel, they would beat him up.
Oh my God.
And that was the beating them up room. Well, I just backed out, closed the door, and went back to my room, and there was no...
I don't need your massage in a butchery room.
I mean, really.
Wow.
I was never afraid in any of this period that something would happen to me.
What gave you this confidence?
I don't know why. I just never did. People were always nice, and they were always straight, and I think they liked it that I was there and I was doing this, and and maybe people were coming because I'd opened the hotel and there was a place for people to stay or something. I don't know, but they treated me like a queen the whole time, and never was there a bad incident, except the poor security guy trying to sell my wine.
But that's not really Like at the time, you know, the stories that we hear about Georgia in the 1990s are quite scary.
Well, there was all of that. It was always stuff going on. And when they had a fight, when one of the groups wanted to kill another, they never stopped until they'd shot 45 bullets at the guy. I mean, it was never bam, bam. It was 45 bullets. And a lot of people were murdered in those days.
Betsy, tell me about your family, because you have children, and where were they at the time, and how was it for them to know? I don't know how much, presumably not much news from post-Soviet Georgia was making into US.
No, none.
But still, they probably knew from you, you know, what was happening in this country at the time.
Not really not really, because first of all, in order to call the U.S., you had to make an appointment with the operators. There was in that telephone building across from the Radisson that became the
Georgian
store.
Post and yes,
exactly. So they'd make appointments for their phone call, and every a possible appointment was taken. So I didn't try.
Writing letters? What about
to go home? Well, I wrote letters, but I was really busy, and I didn't write about this to my son. Who was, I mean, we'd talk on the phone periodically. He'd call me.
How old was he at the time? In his 20s?
Well, he was in his 20s, yeah.
So he was independent already, and you.
Yeah.
Did he come to visit you?
Yes, he did, but not very often. The charm of Tbilisi did not, you know, translate to him, transfer to him, from me to him.
But did he ever ask you, "What are you doing here, Mom?"
No.
Did you have no?
No, because I was working and I was having fun, and he could see. We were full all the time, the hotel. So even though there were only 10 rooms, they were booked every night. So a lot of people were coming, had discovered, you know, and business people were coming, and embassies were opening, and there was a lot of action.
What a difficult environment to run a business at the time when with so much corruption.
Yes, everything was corrupt. I mean, every single night at 6 o'clock or 7, when we were going to have dinner at the hotel, the tax guys arrived.
To have dinner with you?
No, to check everything, to stop it completely and say, you know, we want to look at your books, or we want to look in your safe, or we want...
Every night?
Every night. Yeah.
Right. They wanted did you ever bribe them?
No.
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 That's why they...
But we managed to make sure they didn't see anything.
Like what?
Well, we had dollars, and we
Right.
weren't allowed to have dollars because our guests were paying us in dollars. I mean, where were they going to get Kupani, which was the currency then? And so we were not allowed to have that. So we made sure they didn't find that.
And when it came to selling your business, when did it happen, and how did it make you feel? Like, why did you do it? Why did you sell
Well,
Betsy's
the tax
Hotel?
guys really drove me crazy. And they would come every single day. And the fines got higher and bigger and better. And I said, listen, I can't stand this. I really cannot stand this kind of intimidation. And this was nothing about dollars or Larry or Kupani. It was just that they were harassing me out of my mind and claiming that my tax return was phony and that I had committed all these sins and blah, blah. And I said, I can't stand it anymore. I really had it. So I sold it.
What happened with the money that you got?
I bought a huge yacht in Bodrum, Turkey.
Amazing.
And did yacht cruises.
as a business or just
Yeah,
for
as a
your
business.
Yeah. And how did that go?
Well, it went okay. It wasn't.
Were you there? Then you had to relocate and live in Turkey
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah. What I didn't realize was that it really takes 2 to 3 years to get a business going, because I've been so lucky in Tbilisi that it happened in a month, for example, maybe.
Yeah.
I never counted the days, but basically. And it was very hard to get that business going, and it cost a fortune to run that boat, because you had all the crew, and you had to buy the food, and you had to put them up, and you had to, it was
Not profitable. You were
not
losing
profitable.
money.
I lost money
You lost
on that
money,
deal.
yeah.
And I decided, to hell with this. I've had it up to here, and I came back.
You sold the yacht and you're back in Georgia. What was next?
I bought this house,
You bought this house.
and
Georgia is home, right, Betsy?
Georgia's home.
Is there anything that you regret when you look back? Is there anything?
Probably what I regret is selling the hotel and not being strong enough, or whatever it takes, to withstand that constant stress of dealing with these government guys.
Was it true to your own values, your own principles? Like when you look back at your career, at your professional career, big chunk of it which happened
Here.
in Georgia.
Yeah.
Do you think you were in your element?
Yes. I really do. And I'd been involved mostly in politics in the U.S. and elections and all that kind of thing. I did what I wanted to do. And most people didn't get it, but I didn't see most of my friends in the U.S. for a long period of time. And they didn't get it at all.
What you were doing?
Huh?
Well, they didn't get what you were doing.
No.
They thought that you were just doing some crazy
Lost
things.
my
and
mind or
yeah.
something. They would never have done it. I had been married and divorced. And my friends from school said to me after the divorce, "Why did you do that?" And I said, they said, "He put a roof over your head. He put clothes on your back. He put food on your table. And what more do you want from a husband?" And somehow, I thought that was the craziest thing I'd ever heard in my life. So, from then on, I just had to do what I wanted to do.
She's a great sense of freedom.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
It
Yes.
was.
I want to finish with a question which you've asked me when we were discussing this interview for this podcast, and the question that a lot of Georgians ask us, the foreigners, the expats: what is it that you like or love about this country?
Well, I thought about that a lot. First of all, we're perfectly free here. And we can do anything we want. We can, go up to the mountains, we can go to the seashore, but we can do any kind of job we want. We can invent ourselves newly. And that's a rare thing. And it's a funny place. It's funny. I was thinking about the hilarities that I came across just walking down Worcester Valley Avenue or something. There were these soldiers standing in front of this doorway, and as I was walking by, there was a huge crash inside the building. And these soldiers dropped their guns on the sidewalk and ran inside the building to see what had happened. And I thought, oh my God, somebody's going to pick up I stood and watched those guns until they came back. But I didn't want them to be, you know, crucified sort of for having lost the guns, the weapons.
So you were watching their guns for them.
Yeah.
But when you say funny, you mean
That's
it's
very-
joyful. It's a funny, yeah.
It's funny.
I agree with you on the freedom part. I think it's a really, really attractive thing about this country, isn't it?
Yeah.
That you can experiment and you can work hard, but try and be
Who you want to
who
be
you want to be.
and what you want to do. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you, Betsy. It was a pleasure.
In the next episode of The Remai Show, we meet the coolest Georgian-born American artist and designer, Marika Kandelaki. She creates the most incredible fabrics with bold prints and says that wearing clothes made out of these fabrics is like wearing art.